3, 2, 1, go. Alright, so we're going to mash through this intro real quick. And it tells you all kinds of helpful story things. We don't care about story, we're just trying to go quick. So the first thing you'll see is an inventory drop here. So basically when you open the inventory menu, the game tries to... I think what it does is it tries to bring you to the closest solid platform under you. So it kind of increases your fall speed to the point where you fall really fast. In later patches of the game, that was patched so that you can no longer do it in midair. But we're playing on patch 1.2.2.1, which still has that trick and a couple others. Didn't get a hard fall there. That's pretty nice. So, if this is your first time seeing it, this is Hollow Knight. It is a bug-themed Metroidvania. I play as this cute little vessel who is trying to find his way in the world. And in doing that, he gets to explore all kinds of different places in Hollow Nest, which is the game world. So the first place we come up to is going to be Dirtmouth. It's a nice little cozy town. I'm sure it has plenty of interesting stuff, but we're just going to pass this old man looking for a friend. We're not your friend, buddy. We're not your pal, guy. We're just going to go ahead and hop down this hole onto adventure. So every Hollow Knight speedrun that you see is going to be about the same at the beginning. So we start out by falling down here. We're going to go to the crossroads area and get our first power-up from the Ancestral Mound. So we'll talk about that when we get there. And then we're going to get a couple more power-ups, actually, to allow us to have a little better movement. And then from there, we just kind of start picking up the requirements for completing the run. And so to recap on that, this is an all-skills speedrun. Which means we'll be collecting all of the movement abilities, spells, and nail arts in the game. So that does mean that over the course of the game, we get to see almost every area in the game, excluding ones like the Hive and Godhome. Those were DLC areas that were added later, and they don't have any nail art spells or abilities. So we're just going to make our way around to the first boss. If you've played Hollow Knight casually, you probably remember this guy. He is the False Knight. He's a pretty big, burly dude, bigger than that guy. And yeah, he has a giant mace. He likes to do a lot of damage to us. We're going to try to avoid that. So our goal is to basically go into Ancestral Mound at full health, because we will get an autosave right after Ancestral Mound. So we're going to try to save a little bit of time by healing during this fight, and then keeping a reasonable amount of health going into the next area. So. Oh, and a bad pattern. Cool. So usually he does a couple hops there, and we get our 12 hits in. For each of these phases, you have to hit him 8 times. And then he goes into a tantrum. After this first tantrum, he actually does so much area damage that we can break that wall and just escape from the fight entirely. And if you've played this game casually, you might say, well, why are you escaping from that fight? After the fight, you get so much geo, and he gives you the city crest, which gives you access to the City of Tears area. And to that we say, we don't need it, we're going to break the game. So, a little bit later, we'll do a trick that will get us to the City of Tears. And I'll point that out when we get there. So this is our first ability. It is our Hadoken, our fireball. It is called the Vengeful Spirit. Oh, and you might notice all of the text is in Chinese. In addition to the characters being faster, which is probably something that you're used to from other games that play on Japanese versions, you can actually instant mash the text on Chinese as well. So we take advantage of that a lot whenever dialogue sequences come up. We just kind of mash through it. And you'll get to see that once we get to Salubra to buy our one and only charm of the entire speedrun. And if you've played the speedrun casually, you probably know what it is. It's kind of the most powerful charm in the game. And other than a couple of abilities that cost some money and some stag benches, it's one of the main reasons why we grab money at all in this game. So that is the first mini-boss. He's a balder. If you get close to him, he curls up in his shell, and you can't hit him. So we stay a little far away. We use his little enemies that he throws out to try to get more souls so that we can use the fireball to defeat him. And yeah, that's kind of the game prepping you for the next area that you need to go to, which is conveniently blocked by the same type of guy. So we're going to head there now, and that area is called Green Path. And I feel like this is a spot where casually a lot of players spend a lot of time, just because it's a fairly large area. So it's easy to get lost. But we're kind of going to make a beeline right to the boss of the area. And what we did right there is we did a version-specific quick kill on the Balder. This was also patched out in recent versions, but basically what we can do is we can get the boss to open up so that he's vulnerable, and then walk away from him to unload him a little bit. And then when we launch a fireball into him, it just kind of one-shots him. So we do that to save a little time versus having to throw 4 fireballs into him, which is what he normally takes to die. And here, we're not just picking on these enemies, we're actually farming up enough soul to have full soul for a fireball skip that's coming up. We'll see if we get it. If not, there's a handy-dandy backup. Kind of want to show off the backup anyways, because it's pretty handy to have. Nope, no backup today. But usually what you can do is there's a mosquito down there below you, and he'll give you an opportunity to pogo off of his head, and that will get you up to this area. So we skipped a long path around by doing that. So there are actually 2 of them. There was a second one there, but I didn't have a great lineup for it, so we skipped that one for now. But the idea behind the fireball skip is we get up in the air and then we fire fireballs in the opposite direction. And what that does is that keeps us at the same vertical height, but that pushes us horizontally in the opposite direction of the fireball. So that allows us to kind of extend the length of our jump a little bit, and it allows us to make jumps that we're not normally able to. Again, coming into that room right before that Moss Knight, we made sure that we were at full soul so that we could just kind of hit him as soon as he spawned, and then immediately launch 2 fireballs into him, and that's the end of him. You're going to see 2 more Moss Knights here. Normally, any other run would go up there and save Zote from the Vengefly King. But we don't want to save Zote. So we're going to go down here instead and just make a lot of money. Because these guys drop, I think it's a total of 200 Geo compared to the Vengefly dropping about 100. So we go ahead and kill them, we take all their money, and here we go to the first, I want to say it's the first real boss fight. We had to fight the Balder, and that was, that wasn't too bad. But this is the first real boss fight. This is Hornet. So, casually, you probably had some trouble with this one. And she's kind of rough. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. We still got to pay attention here, but we're gonna try to hound her a little bit, and just kind of launch some fireballs into her for some extra DPS there. Alright, there we go. Pretty good Hornet fight. And here's our second ability, the Mothwing Cloak. So yeah, this allows us to dash. If we press the trigger, we're going to use that a lot. And to save time, instead of having to walk all the way back and go through the area of the game where the game teaches you about short gaps and how you use the dash to get past that, we're just going to save and quit right back to the bench where we were at the Ancestral Mound. And that saves all of the backtracking through Green Path. So again, we are off to get our next ability. And this will be the last ability that we need before we can start just kind of hunting down bosses and the remaining skills to finish out the run. So by getting the dash, we gain entry to this area, which is the Fungal Waste. Also has some pretty sweet music, so enjoy that. And yeah, you'll see that we use inventory falls in a lot of, or inventory drops in a lot of places where we just have a long vertical fall. These are my favorite enemies in the game. I call them the Owen Wilson mushrooms. I even have an emote for them. That's how much I love them. And yeah, we've got a pretty big skip coming up here that we're going to go for and hopefully get. You know, glass half full, right? But yeah, the big skip that's coming up is called the Explosion Pogo. And what it does is it allows us to enter the Mantis Village a little quicker through an area that we shouldn't be able to go through without the power-up from the Mantis Village. So we're going to lure this guy's shot as soon as he fires at me. There we go. We're going to lure this guy's shot down here, and almost. We'll go for it again. So we've got a pogo off the shot and the explosion. There we go. Second try isn't bad. And that lets us get to the Mantis Village a little quicker. Even getting that second try is still faster than going around. So gonna see if we can get up here on these mantises. There we go. And I'm gonna respect them a little bit because they're kind of a pain. There we go. All right, cool. And second ability time. So this ability allows us to do a wall jump. And yeah, with wall jump and dash, we now have all the ingredients that we need to get to the City of Tears. So we're going to make our way to the next big skip, which is going to be called the Shade Skip. We'll talk about that a little bit in advance too. If you've ever played this game, you are very familiar with what happens when you die. But if you haven't, whenever you die as the main character, a ghostly apparition of yourself spawns called the Shade. And he's just a very dark fellow, just floating in the air. And he just kind of hangs out waiting for you to come recover him. And from that, you get all your geo back and that type of thing. So it turns out that the Shade will actually fight you in some cases. And he does kind of move towards you a little aggressively. We're going to use that to take advantage of the Shade a little bit to gain a little bit of height. So first we gotta take care of this other mini boss over here, blocking the way to Salubra. There we go. And we get a little more money from this, which is kind of nice. But you'll see I'm picking up geo kind of in specific places along the way as we go. And that's to help with some of our shopping purchases. Shopping and ability purchases. So we're going to buy the one and only charm that we use across the entire run right here. And that is going to be the Shaman Stone. So the Shaman Stone is a charm that when equipped, it increases your spell damage by quite a lot. I don't know the exact number on it, but it is significant enough to where the fights are completely different without it. So here we take an intentional death after taking that bench right there, and now you can see the shade spawning. So what we're going to do is we're going to lure that guy up here. He takes 2 hits to dispel, so we're going to give him 1 hit, and then we're going to give him a little pogo and get up into this area that we shouldn't be able to get to yet. And yeah, we're kind of entering the City of Tears backwards. Any percent does this, all skills does this, a lot of categories do this, some of the longer ones don't. But we'll get to pass by where we would get the Dream Nail, which we won't get until later, just because of how the routing works out in this. But yeah. We are making our way to the City of Tears, which is a place where we'll get some extra money and a couple more abilities, and we get to enter the frightening Soul Sanctum. Let me grab some soul from this guy, because we're going to grab some money from these guys, let the other one spawn. There we go. So we want to get to about 260 to 280 geo here. That's kind of our sweet spot. 277 is good. So we're going to grab a bench here, because we're going to save and quit back to it. And you'll notice that a lot of times, this run is timed by in-game time and not by RTA. So if I were to do it a little faster for the category, I maybe wouldn't rely on the save and quits in some cases. But in this case, we'll continue playing as if we were doing the in-game time strats. So this is the Gorgeous Husk. He's a little bit of a hidden character here, as you can tell by the fact that we had to walk through a wall to get to him. But when we kill him, he drops a lot of geo, and that's a really good source of the geo that we need for the dash slash. And this is one of 2 trips that we'll make into Kingdom's Edge. We don't spend a lot of time in Kingdom's Edge. But we go ahead and carry that bench that we have all the way out to one of the farthest parts of Kingdom's Edge to get the dash slash for 800 geo. And dash slash is a pretty handy nail art that we can get. In this patch, the dash slash also can hit through solid objects to some extent. So we're going to abuse that a little bit to get another skill really early and without spending extra geo, because we are trying to be very deliberate about our geo, and we have 801 geo, so we're good to go to get the dash slash. So we're just kind of speeding our way through here, trying to not get hit, but if we do, it's not a big deal. We're saving and quitting out. And that's probably one of the more forgiving things about Hollow Knight speedruns, which probably seem fairly difficult if you ever played the game casually. But during the speedrun, you get a lot of opportunities to save and quit out. There are a lot of benches in good places. There are really only a couple parts where we don't have a good bench placement and have to worry about dying. But yeah, and there's another great example of our text mashing. We can just mash through those text boxes almost immediately. Yeah, that's why we run it in Chinese. So now we're going to make our way over to the Soul Sanctum. And in order to get up there, we're going to use another sequence break, which is going to be a Spire Pogo. So you may have noticed while we've been going through the world that a lot of the things in the background are things that you can hit and destroy. So they do have a collision. In this case, we're going to use the fact that that spire lets us pogo off of it to get up here before we get the wings ability. And then there we hit a lever through the ceiling, and yeah, we're on up through a dark room into what's going to be the entrance to Soul Sanctum. That dark room isn't too hard. I kind of just try to make sure I throw in an extra dash or two so that I'm directly against the wall. And then I do a wall jump where I hold down jump for a little while, just to make sure that I get enough height to land on the platform, and then we just jump straight up. It's not too bad. So this guy is kind of a mini-boss, locking the way to Soul Sanctum, letting us know about the pain and suffering that awaits us in Soul Sanctum. If we're fortunate, we can get a double hit fireball on him, but we didn't get it that time, so we chased him down a little bit. So here is dash slash, hitting the lever through a door, which you can't do in current patch, but here we get to take advantage of it. Also in current patch, they actually changed the layout of this room so that it's no longer possible to even jump up to this lever door. So in current patch, you have no choice. You have to go get the elegant key to unlock the door that was right there that we just passed. And yeah, it's just a little bit slower. But Shade Soul is really handy. Shade Soul plus Shaman Stone means that we end up doing a lot of damage with our fireball. We're going to use another dash slash here so that we don't have to run through that deadly room to hit the lever to open this door. There we go, nice double, and he's done. So that was the Soul Warrior mini boss. He drops 200 geo, so that factors into our geo counts a little bit. And he's normally not too bad if you come in there with full soul. A lot of times you can just kind of wait for him at one side of the room or the other to get double hits on him with the fireballs. And now we're coming up to a boss that a lot of people probably remember playing casually. I feel like I'm going to say that a lot. There are a lot of bosses that people probably struggled with casually. This one was made more painful by the fact that you don't get a bench except before the entirety of Soul Sanctum. So when you end up having to inevitably refight this guy, you've got to walk all the way back through to get back to him. This is a pretty good fight. So we got the Soul Master, and now we're gonna get our next ability. Just kidding, he's not dead. He's also doing his favorite Shakira impression. I appreciate that. I'm also a huge Shakira fan. Kappa. So now, for reals this time, he is dead. So we're going to let him grab, or we're going to grab this ability, which is called the Desolate Dive. So the Desolate Dive is important to get here, and part of why this run is routed this way is because there are a lot of parts that require you to have the Crystal Heart ability. Crystal Heart ability is in Crystal Peaks. Well, there are only two ways into Crystal Peaks. So you can either get the Lantern, which lets you go through a toll gate that only costs 50 geo, so it's pretty reasonable. And then there's the other way, which is probably the vanilla intended way to some extent, in that it has a collapsible floor that you can only get rid of with the Desolate Dive. So we're going that route because getting the lantern would be too expensive. The Lumafly lantern in the game is 1800 geo, which is over twice what we spend on the dash slash. 1800 geo might be the extent of the geo that we spend across the entire run. So we don't really want to get that, but what that does mean is that we spend a decent amount of time in dark rooms. And you'll get to see that shortly when we end up at the end of Crystal Peaks. There's a dark room that we'll have to go through to get one of the skills that we need to beat the game. So we're a little short of 300 geo here, which we need for the King Station stag. So we went ahead and grabbed it there. We had enough health to survive that hit, because we know that guy only does 2 damage. So, and we have to take this bench anyways. You might hear me say a couple times, I'm carrying a bench. Basically what that means is I've benched at a specific spot so that I can save and quit back to it later. And in this case, I'm doing the same thing. We're going to save and quit back to this area again shortly, once we're done with all the Crystal Peak stuff. So we just make sure that we go ahead and grab that bench. But from here on out, we can't bench anywhere else, because if we save and quit, then we'd have to go back to that bench. So we're going to try not to. There are some backups in case we really have to, but it should be fine. So we got 300 geo to open up this station right here. And so a lot of games have fast travel. This game also has fast travel in the form of stags. And this is a stag station. So we're going to hop on this guy's back and ride all the way back to the beginning of the game, which is close to the entrance to Crystal Peaks. So again, we're ignoring benches. We ignored that one to the left of us as well. And Crystal Peaks is probably one of my favorite areas. It's a very dangerous area, but I'm the type of person that likes, you know, difficult platforming and games like Celeste and other similar games that have some tricky jumps. So I actually enjoy the fast-paced movement in Crystal Peaks. And hopefully I can show off some of that here. All right. So there's only 2 things that we need to get out of Crystal Peaks, and they're both abilities. So we're just going to try to skip pretty much everything else and just make our way on through. Okay. We're gonna wait on this guy a little bit. Make sure we have enough health to do this. Hashtag safety strats. Grab a little soul from him. So the soul will let us heal just if health things get too bad. And there is a certain part that we'll definitely try to go into at full health just because of the danger of it. You'll understand once we get there. Also, if you're trying to find that last scrub, he was back there and up the wall. You're welcome. If you collect all the grubs, it gives you a charm, so... if you're trying to finish out your 112% file, probably want to do that. We're going to respect this laser a little bit. Cool. Alright, next ability is the Crystal Heart. So the Crystal Heart lets us do some pretty strong horizontal dashes. It doesn't kill all enemies, but you'll see we'll pop a few enemies on the way that are a little bit weaker. But this also gives us the ability to cross very large gaps without having to really figure out any other convoluted way around. Like going back through those lasers, which would be kind of terrible. So we're going to grab a heal here, and we're actually going to farm this guy. Normally you can't hit him from behind, but if you do an up pogo at him, you can go ahead and hit him anyways. Grab some soul there. And this part, if you get stomped, you get sent back to the beginning, so kind of don't want that to happen. This is the only grub we'll save during the run. You're welcome. So those guys are terrible. In current patch, they were actually patched to do their shots a little bit faster, which is kind of awful. But this is the dark room that we were talking about. It's a little tricky, so we're gonna take it a little slow. We did reload the room there so that we wouldn't have to deal with the flyboy that was shooting at us. And that's okay. That'll work. And I actually have enough health to show off one of my favorite tricks. That honestly doesn't make a huge impact on the run, but let's be real. Swag is important. So we're going to make our way through this very deadly set of platforms. And this crystal takes 8 hits to break, so we're going to hit it 7 times. And then we're going to dash slash into it, which gets us stuck in the dash slash animation while we're collecting the ability. Kills us on the spikes, and so while we're collecting it, we can just leave. So it skips the cutscene of getting that ability. And yeah, we're on to the next one. Just moving right along. A lot of these abilities are just things that we need to basically have the minimum requirements to do all of the boss fights. So that ability that we got is called Descending Dark. You'll see us using it a lot, because Descending Dark is probably the best offensive ability in the game. It does a lot of damage in 3 different hits if you hit the enemy with all 3. And also, after you use the attack, it gives you some invulnerability frames. So in this version, we're actually going to hop off here to make this go a little faster too. Because normally we'd have to wait for the light being thing to show up, the moth. But in later versions, they patched out as the amount of invulnerability frames that you get from D-Dart. But in this version, we get to take full advantage of it. And we will. So, also got to take advantage of the C-Dash in this area. In other categories, obviously, they get the Dream Nail a little earlier, so they don't get to use the Crystal Heart Dash to fly past that. But we do. Stuck the landing. Huzzah. And now we have the Dream Nail. So, the Dream Nail is required to beat the game. Because whenever you get to one of the 3 dreamers in the game, you have to dream nail wherever they're at, their body, to go into their dreams and free them. And that's kind of the main plot of the game, is that this character is looking to free the 3 dreamers to break the seal on the Black Egg, and that allows us to fight the Hollow Knight. Which, I hate to break it to you, this little fellow is not the Hollow Knight. You'll get to see who the Hollow Knight is. This guy, he's just a hero. Just a tiny hero. So, time for another, well, if you played this casually, you probably hated this boss. But this is the Watcher Knights. They block the first dreamer that we're going to go to. and you have to fight 6 of them, but if you use the chandelier up at the top, you kill the first one automatically. So we only have to fight 5. And we actually use that chandelier, or we use D-Dart quite a bit in this fight to do a boatload of damage to him, and effectively just kill them all in 3 hits. And you might see that I'm dream nailing in between. One of the other benefits of having the dream nail is that you can farm soul off of enemies, and we do that quite a bit to have enough to do this attack. So, and there we go. So, watch your knights down. If you're struggling to beat them in your casual file, go to get Descending Dark, get the Lantern. I'm sure you have enough time to farm Geo. And then you don't have to do that Dark Room. Get Descending Dark and just kind of destroy them. So we grab a bunch of extra Geo there. It's a really convenient place to just get a chunk of it. And there are a few places where we end up needing to grab stag stations and a single pay bench to have another convenient place to save back to. So we run up to the Dreamer, we swing our Dream Nail at him, and we're in his head. And now we're gonna kill him. And absorb his soul. I'm sorry, we're a rude character. What can I say? The whole point of this game is that we find 3 visionary people and kill them and eat their soul. What can you do? But you see there, it broke one of the seals on the black egg. So we're gonna go track down the other 2. And other than the abilities that we have to get, that's pretty much the point of the run, is that we pick up abilities along the way while we're routing to the next 2 Dreamers. And once we have all 3 Dreamers, we can take on the big baddie himself. So it's worth noting that if you watch other runners do all skills speedruns, they're going to take a slightly different route from the one I'm taking right now. And that's because I actually, when I was learning this run, I found that one of the tricks was pretty unforgiving. And I found that there was a pretty decent safety for it that only costs about 5 seconds. And so I've run with that since. But we'll talk about that a little bit more. I do get one of the skills a little early for that trick, which is what we're on our way to do now. And spoilers, it's our double jump. Ooh, nice. So, you don't always get a good pattern there, but it helped out that the flyboys were all out of the way, so we could just kind of zoom our way through there and just make our way down into the ancient basin. We pogo there so that we hopefully avoid a soft landing, or a hard landing. Not this time. Alright, so let's grab the pay bench. And we're going to move off screen while it does its animation of opening up, because it's faster for us to leave the screen and come back than to wait on it to do its animation to reveal the bench. And we're going to save here because we kind of take a tangent off in this direction, and walking back would take longer than just save and quitting. So we build in the Geo for that too. That's why that nice chunk of Geo after the Watcher Knights was really helpful. And yeah, so we're going to make our way around here, past all these guys that are shooting at us. Some of this damage is just unavoidable. There we go. And we're just going to go ahead and, again, safety. And make our way up to the Broken Vessel. The Broken Vessel is a boss that blocks the Monarch Wings. And so we gotta take him on. He's just kind of, you know, laying here, chilling, minding his own business, absorbing these weird orange things. Which, by the way, it is slightly faster to do what I'm doing right now and getting rid of the ones that are farther away, so that they don't have to, so that you don't have to wait for them to walk back to him. Yep. We kind of just use this phase to build up D-Dark Soul, so that we can just D-Dark him over and over again. The ability's really broken, again. One last plea for help, and we say, no, we can't help you, sorry, we're trying to move fast. And off we go to grab our double jump ability. And so the double jump is pretty handy because you can use the double jump to double jump out of pretty much everything that puts you in the air. And one of the things that we'll get to show off that does that is we'll be using the Crystal Dash and then breaking out of that and double jumping out of it for a skip to get to this next ability, which is the Yzma's Tear. So, if you're playing this game casually and you see a bunch of water and you're like, wow, when I land in this water, I take damage and this really sucks. Well, what you're looking for is the Yzma's Tear. It allows us to sit in the acid and just not take any damage. And a lot of the speedruns actually skip this ability because they use a acid skip. But since we have to grab abilities anyways, there's not really any reason for us to skip it or to do acid skip areas without it. So we just go ahead and grab it. So again, if you've watched other people do all skills, they would have gotten the Yzma's Tear before Wings, and they would be headed off to Hornet 2. We're just taking a real quick backtrack back to Yzma's Tear. But as a result, we'll also get to save and quit out of Yzma's Tear, which is kind of nice. So we're going to drop down here. Normally the spike tunnel expects you to come from the left and C-dash through, but with a pretty precise spike pogo, we can go ahead and just make our way into here without having to go through all of that stuff. Okay. And there we go. Super safe double jump there. And here's the Yzma's Tear. So if you get confused watching other runs and you're like, why are you getting Yzma's Tear before Wings? That's why. The getting the Wings before it is actually the weird thing. So, so we're coming up on a fight that most of the other Hollow Knight categories don't end up having to do. And it is honestly one of the tougher fights too, so we are going to take a safety bench here. And this is going to be the Hornet 2 fight. If you're playing through the game casually and you didn't realize that there were 2 Hornet fights, I'm sorry, I just spoiled that for you. It's kind of hard not to do, but we end up having to fight Hornet 2, and she's much faster than the first Hornet. Also has some new attacks that are pretty annoying. So understandably, so that we don't have to do a ton of walking back here, we're going to grab this bench up here. And the reason why we have to beat Hornet 2 is because we have to get the item behind her, which unlocks 2 of the abilities that we need for all skills. Any clue on the differences between PC and PS4 version outside of the lack of down patching? That's the main thing. The PS4 version might be FPS locked as well, but the main difference is the current patch versus down patch. So I mean, if you're running any percent on the current patch, you know, you won't see much difference. In all skills, the route will be completely different, because you can't do this route on current patch, just because of the major skips that we do. Oh, heck. Okay. I'm gonna respect her a little bit here. Come on. Alright. Come on. I'm not getting a lot of soul from her right now. Alright. As you can see, that fight's a little stressful. I usually try not to do that at 1 health, but hey, you know what? Let's have some fun with it. But yeah, if you're trying to do all skills on current patch or on console, what you'll have to do is to get Shade Soul, you'll have to get the Elegant Key, which is another 800 Geo that the route doesn't account for, because you don't have access to the dash slash. Beyond that, your Hollow Knight fight will be harder, because in current patch, the Hollow Knight, some of his attacks do more damage, and he also is faster, I believe. So, but it shouldn't be too bad. You should definitely try it out on console if you're curious. So we're making our way back. We got an ability to pick up here. And then we'll be on to the second Dreamer. This is another one of those one-off things, so we'll be grabbing a bench very close to it and just kind of saving and quitting back once we're done. If you're looking for some of the DLC content for the game, it is also out in the area that we'll be at. I won't get to show you exactly where, but I can kind of point you in the right direction as we get there. So as you can see, the C-dash is pretty helpful in just giving us some increased mobility. Heck. That guy exploded behind me. That's another perk. You get to watch enemies explode while you C-dash. Yep, and we're just gonna make this slightly dangerous climb up through this area to get to Howling Cliffs. So Howling Cliffs has a couple of things if you're looking to full complete the game. There's a Dream Warrior out here. There's an ability right here, which we're gonna get. There's a charm, and if you continued on to the left there, instead of ducking down here like I did, then there is a spot where you can hit a lantern in the ground, or I guess kind of a furnace or oven, and it will open up a DLC that you can do. So we're just going to go ahead and save and quit out of here, No big deal. And on to second dreamer. Also, I hope everyone's enjoying the game. If you have any more questions as you're watching the run, feel free to throw them out there. I don't mind at all. I will say this is probably one of the most impressive Metroidvanias that I've seen. And the, you know, I've played Ori and I've played things like Super Metroid and a lot of the other Metroids. I still think this is just, in terms of raw content and replayability, this is an incredible game. Oh. Let's, there we go. So we're going to try to make our way down here, taking only a little damage. But this is another part where we're going to take a safety bench that we normally wouldn't, just because the streamer fight can be a little crazy. So. Alright, so the next boss blocking a dreamer is going to be Umu. And he's basically a giant jellyfish dude. And yeah, he just kind of attacks us in an annoying way until our buddy Coral comes along, hits him with a sword, and causes him to go into his vulnerable form. So for right now, we're just kind of dodging him a little bit, hoping to not get hit by his attacks. Yeah, Quirrell, there he is. He's gonna help us out. Okay. And we always want to try to get to full soul before each of those phases, so that we can just kind of launch fireballs into him. And there we go. A 2-cycle is what we wanted. We would have been happy with a 3-cycle, but a 2-cycle is definitely what we're aiming for. I accidentally shut off door storage again in the most useless way possible. Or gate storage. So you're welcome. That fling in the other direction. But Coral's going to use the power of his mask to reveal that our dreamer is right here. We're going to go ahead and hop into her brain and kill her. Am I excited for the upcoming game? Not sure if it's actually a sequel. It's true. I am very excited for it. I think Silksong, honestly, if I had to grade just based on this game, I think it's going to be amazing. They're obviously very talented at creating games. So I'm very excited for it. I'm hoping that one of the many indie showcases that we get over the next year or so will actually showcase Silksong again, because I feel like we got a preview at like E3 or something, and since then we haven't heard anything else about the game, and that kind of sucks. But yeah, no, I think it's going to be a fantastic game. I highly recommend this game as well. If you haven't ever looked at this game, it is, I mean, it's normally a $15 game, which is unreal, but it also goes on sale pretty regularly for $10, and like you will not find a game that has more content than this game, unless it's, you know, a Breath of the Wild or something, and even then it's pretty close. So we're gonna go clean up some more abilities here on our way to the third dreamer. So we got a little bit of a detour. And some other categories, would probably just get the green path stag and go back that way. Or have already gotten the green path stag. But in this one, we have to make our way all the way back out from Fog Canyon to Green Path. So we're just kind of worming our way through the world. And also, the reason why we didn't get this ability earlier when we were in Green Path is because it technically requires the Crystal Dash. There are a couple areas where you can kind of get by without pogos, or with just pogos, but in... Oh, let's line this up. There we go. But in this one, unfortunately, you do have to have the C-Dash, because you can't pogo off of those spikes at the bottom. Also, you noticed I entered the room with a C-Dash, and I didn't have to worry about that enemy that was going to run into me. In current patch, that's been changed. So, unfortunately, if you're playing on console or the regular Steam release, you won't be able to do that. You will hit the first guy. Yeah. Another nail ability down. And now we get to go to one of my favorite mini-boss fights. Which I'm going to say somewhat sarcastically. Because it's a swarm of angry mosquitoes. And, you know, in real life, I wouldn't be a big fan of a swarm of angry mosquitoes. In this game, it's even worse. So, we're just going to try to make the best of that. And then we'll be on our way to the third and final Dreamer. Which, I know what you're saying. Oh, you're on your way to the third and final Dreamer. Does that mean that you're going to be fighting the boss after it? Well, not quite. So even though we'll grab the third Dreamer, we still have to grab a couple of skills. And this is where that item that we got from behind Hornet 2 comes into play. It allows us entry to an area of the game called the Abyss. And in that Abyss, we find our final two abilities. Arguably, one of them is the most powerful ability in the game. Come on. There we go. That fight never goes that well. I'm just gonna throw that out there. It never goes that well. But mosquitoes down. Us 1, mosquitoes 0. We have once again prevailed. Just in time for summer to be over. And down we go. This is another skip using dash slash. Normally we wouldn't be able to hit that lever, but we're going to enter Queen's Gardens backwards because why not? The hitbox on that needle is really weird, so even though it looks like it should hit me a lot of times, it doesn't. Don't really know why. But we got another big skip coming up here. Other than the one we just did at the lever skip. But we're going to go ahead and fall down here, and then we're going to hit the spikes at a very specific spot. And so what happened there is we hit the spike at a specific spot that was actually in the loading zone where the lever was. So when we respawned as if we died in the area with the lever. So, yeah. Or, you know, as some people would put it, cheaty stuff. But it avoids us having to go around the room. That is also patched out in current patch. So if you're hoping to do that on your console version, I unfortunately have some bad news for you. But It's just a nice handy way for us to save a little bit of time there. It's not super precise. You'll get it with plenty of practice. So here is our second set of dark rooms. And it might look intimidating because we're going through 3 different dark rooms here. But this is, I always say this is the easiest of the 2 dark rooms. Some people don't always agree with that, but as long as you have practiced the movement, you're pretty much left alone through the whole thing. And I'm going to keep an eye out for this wall, because if I go too far left, there's an enemy that will chase me, hunt me down through the dark room, and I don't really want to do that, because that would be a bad time. So here we go, end of 3rd dark room. We'll go ahead and cancel our C dash there, so that we have enough control here to make our way up. And so in any percent, you'll see people take that bench, or casually you'll take that bench. But with the combination of abilities that we have, we can just kind of sneak in the back door here. And yeah, we'll just make our way up through here. This guy is handy for farming soul, so we're going to farm up to full soul here so that we can do 3 safe fireball shots here. You can also do a dive here, but 3 fireball shots is definitely a lot safer. And here we go. This might have been told already, but is it easy to go back to older versions for speedrun purposes on PC? Yeah, it's pretty easy to do. I've heard that some of the what is that client? GOG? I don't know what the acronym is. But I've heard that if you get the game on there, it has an easy down patcher. But in the case of Steam, I just basically have 3 or 4 different folders for different versions. I have the 1221 that I'm running on now. I have a modded 1221 that lets me use save states to practice. And then I have the current patch, which is 1432. And modded for that, because I like to play rando sometimes. Also, this game has a rando, and it's amazing. But yeah, whenever I go to switch between versions, all I do is I just pull up the folders where my Hollow Knight folder would be, and I just rename whichever one it is to Hollow Knight. It's painless. But if you're looking for a point-and-click interface, then some of the other clients for Hollow Knight do have that. So this is the last stag that we're going to buy, and we are on our way to the last 2 abilities in arguably one of the more frightening areas of the game. So once you get to the Abyss, you start to get some idea about who the main character is. And so if you're trying to avoid story spoilers, this is probably the part where you might want to bow out, because you're gonna get some pretty blatant spoilers about like what type of character the main character is, I guess. And I'll leave it at that, because not to spoil, but more. There we go. So we're gonna go ahead and fast fall through here, skip everything all the way to the bottom. And we've got 2 abilities to pick up. These guys are giving us crazy hands to show their support. I'm really appreciative of that. Glad you guys are enjoying the run. But if you get too close, they will actually damage you. So there's that. So we're going to climb our way up here to this lighthouse and hit the lever, which will open up this next area and allow us to get to the ability. So this ability is going to be the Shade Cloak, and what it allows us to do is it allows us to kind of become invulnerable while we're dashing for a certain time. and we're probably going to use that a fair amount in the Hollow Knight fight. Also, you'd see on my save file, it still has the bench from way back when we were fighting the second Dreamer. So saving and quitting out of here actually just puts us back here. It is a hard save, but for some reason it shows that other bench. So we're just gonna C-dash our way on out. We can use the Shade Cloak to get past those hands that are swinging in the ground, but there's not really any reason for us to get close enough to them to even bother doing that. Oh, also on the topic of speedrunning on PC, there is a auto splitter for Hollow Knight. So if you're looking for an easy way to take down splits, it's got it covered for you. So we pop over to this area, we use the hint in the background to say, okay, we need to use Howling Raids here. That's what it's trying to tell us. So we do it as soon as we jump into the room, and it gives us the upgraded version of Howling Raids called Abyss Shriek. Abyss Shriek is the most powerful attack in the game. DPS wise, it does way more damage than the Descending Dark. I actually didn't expect that to kill him. I'm sorry, dude. I just gotta get out of here. So we're gonna make our way out. Try to grab some soul on the way, because we want to have some soul for the Hollow Knight fight. So okay. Nice. That's alright. It had to happen at some point, right? Alright. Okay. So we're going to use some pogos here to just grab some soul from these guys. And just try to get up to a full bar here. This climb is a little bit of a bear. But just like that, it's all done. And the main reason why we want to have soul is because we want to go into the final fight with enough soul to just kind of rapid fire abilities at the boss. We'll get one, maybe two off at the beginning, and then after that we just kind of want to be able to take advantage of his openings to damage him with Abyss Shriek. So back to Dirtmouth, where it all started, where we were going to talk to Elderbug and then completely ignored him. Sorry, Elderbug. Feels bad. We're going to take the bench to heal on up for this final fight. He's still just standing there waiting for us to talk to him. And just for the record, if you skip the bench there and you come into the Black Egg and start the Hollow Knight fight, and you somehow miss the bench that you're going to pass in the Black Egg, don't worry. When you go to fight the Hollow Knight, there is an automatic hard save at this bench. So even though we're going to pass it like we will right here, if we die to the Hollow Knight, which fingers crossed we don't, but if we do, we'll pop back to that bench. So not a big deal. I always worry a little bit when that game freezes a little on this transition too, because it is possible to soft lock coming into the Hollow Knight fight. I have backup saves for that, but I'm glad it didn't happen. So this is the final fight of the normal game, and all skills in general. So time will be at... it will be when the final cutscene starts. So there's a part where the screen goes black. That's not when time will be. Time will be once the cutscene starts. And I'll mention it from there as well. second phase. Alright, third phase. So here we have a little bit of time to heal. And he's just going to stand here and wait for us to hit him, which is really nice of him. Alright, fourth phase. So here, we're just going to go ahead and spam to take him out. So, I will call it out. I'll give you a nice little warm-up, but this is we got about 30 more seconds before time. So now, just like we did with the Dreamers, we're going to soak in all of his essence without giving any spoilers. So, coming up, time. And that is Hollow Knight. So I'll let the credits play. But thank you so much, guys, for hanging out and watching this wonderful run with me. Hollow Knight is a fantastic game. I'm a big fan. And yeah, you should play it yourself if you have not. And other than that, I just want to say that I really appreciate the very kind cause that the marathon is doing. Megavan is a really cool dude, and I hope that him and his family get the support that they need to make it through some tough times. So please, please, please donate to the cause. It's very important. And thank you again.